Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, we're back.
We are back, and I am super, super excited for today's episode. I've been waiting for this.
It's been a long time coming. I'm actually like a little bit nervous that I won't do the experience justice. Today we're talking
Oh,
about
I think
my
you will.
time in Honduras. I know it's been I opened up all of my old Facebook albums to try and like
Wow.
get the juices flowing. I know, right? Like back when you would upload 400 photos to an
Hmm.
album and not 10 to a carousel. Um
Yeah, and when you had like you could auto upload from your phone if you wanted to, and they would sit in
oh,
private until you
no,
pushed them out.
nope. These were from a real live camera. They were not from a
Mm,
phone. They're from a camera.
wow.
Can you
I
believe
remember
that?
using gosh, what was it? It was Apple's version of Lightroom, which I've now forgotten. Aperture.
Oh, yep.
And you could connect Aperture to like Flickr and to Facebook, and
Yeah.
you could you could push albums like out and up, and it was really handy.
Yep.
But yeah, like gosh, Facebook albums.
Right? They're all still there. You have to be my friend to see them. And
Yeah,
that's
you have to hunt for them. We've got a good
right.
remodel album that I think is actually open because it's just pictures of our remodel that we did to the house in San Diego.
Yeah.
Very dramatic changes, and then there are private albums as well, just for friends and family and stuff.
Right.
Well, it's fun. So we
Ugh.
have been a long time coming with this. Like, has it
Yeah.
been a year? When was our first episode?
I
Has it
don't
been a year?
remember. Time is a flat circle. It
Um,
doesn't mean anything to
it
me.
is a flat circle. So Caitlin dropped like just off the cuff in our very first episode, like, oh, like, well, when I was in Honduras, blah 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 blah, and we were like, wait, hold
Yep.
up, but we didn't have time to cover it, and so we promised we'd cover that in a future episode. So it's not really a marketing question,
No.
um, but it's more of a like life question and
A
career
life
choices
experience.
and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
experiences.
Hmm.
So we're going to be talking about that today. But before we get to it, we need a cocktail, and I think
We
this one is
do.
especially good for
It's really
talking
sweet.
about our Honduras. And
Yeah.
I was mistaken on what this is, so
Yeah.
I kind of get a Cuba Libre and a Caipirinha mixed up.
Hmm.
Even though Caipirinha is from Brazil, they are not the same thing, just from different places, because there
Hmm.
is a very key difference. Aside from the alcohol is
Yeah.
a little bit different, but they're both a
Yeah.
sugarcane based alcohol.
Hmm.
Um, so do you want to roll with this one, or do you want me to roll with it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I should say too that our other drink of choice in Honduras. So I spent time in Guatemala, like 3 weeks in Guatemala while I was still in college, and that was like Cuba Libre was it there.
Wow.
And then what like I think because I was 22 and didn't know how to like drink anything that wasn't sugar water, you know.
Hmm.
And then the other, like when I moved or lived in Honduras, we had just drank like a lot of Central American beer. It's like Pacifico and
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's where it came
gosh,
up
I'm
with the
trying to think.
Pacifico, because a lot of
Yeah,
the
I think
Mexican
that's what
beers
you.
make it down
Yeah,
through Central America,
yeah.
which
I'm
makes
trying to
sense. Not a lot of Bud
remember.
Light.
No, no,
No Natty's Best
no. Ugh, I wouldn't do that anyway. Gross.
or Natty Light.
Uh,
It's Mud's Best. Yeah, right.
I don't know. And none of those. None of those. Thank you. But Cuba Libre is just rum and coke, basically.
With lime
If you
juice.
want to be, yeah, if you want to be really schmancy, you can do half an ounce of freshly squeezed lime juice, typically about half of a lime, 2 ounces of light rum, and 4 ounces of your preferred cola. I, at the time, really loved like Mexican Coke, which is just
Made with sugar
made with actual
cane.
sugar, yeah, instead of
Yeah.
all of the nonsense.
I love that
Um,
Costco always has the Mexican Coke almost
yeah,
everywhere. Even in Omaha, we
yeah,
can get that because we could get it in San Diego, and we're like, well, we're like a stone's throw from Mexico. Like you can miss an
right.
exit, and you're in Mexico.
Yeah,
Um, but up here, they have it too, which is really great.
yeah, yeah.
So this one's also super simple because there's no like you don't need a shaker, you don't need
No, you
anything.
just like put it all together and give it a little stir.
Yep,
You don't
lime
want to
juice
stir
in the
too
glass.
vigorously. Yep.
Yep, rum in the glass. Can you
Yeah.
measure the rum with your soul or with your heart? You don't have
Yeah,
to actually measure
definitely.
2 ounces. Like you
Yep.
just sort of,
Uh-uh.
I pour and go
You just
one,
go with what
two.
feels right. Yeah.
I think that's good.
You might go like 3, 4.
Yeah, some days, some days. My
Yeah.
problem with this is I just don't drink. I'm gonna show my California time here, but I don't drink soda anymore. I don't drink
I
Coke,
don't
pop.
I don't
Um,
really either.
I go back and forth between saying soda and pop, but soda seems to come out
I
more for
call it
me.
soda. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's just like I can like every once in a while I just want a fountain Coke from like
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's because whatever they do with theirs, like I don't know, the crack that they put in it or whatever it
Probably.
is. But I get about halfway through it and then I'm like, yeah, I don't want this anymore.
Uh-huh.
So I'm done. But I think that I could make this work. The rum is in there, the lime juice. I also think that if you were doing this as kind of your budget, you could just use like the Diet Coke with lime and pour some rum in it. It's not going to be the
You could
same,
do
of
that.
course, but you
No.
could do that. You're going to
Yeah.
have sort of a,
You'll get the idea, but maybe
yeah.
not the good in theory, not necessarily in practice. But that's
Yeah,
fine.
and I was talking about it reminds me of a caipirinha, which has not been a cocktail yet, but will be. I had a bunch of those in Corpus Christi when I was
Yeah.
working for the wireless carrier.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had so many that I'm not entirely sure how I got back to my hotel room, but I did wake up there and I did not have a hangover, which is
Oh,
surprising
I'm really
because
happy for you.
the liquor in that is cachaça, which is like a rum because it's a sugarcane based booze.
It's fermented sugar cane.
Yeah, it's just it's powerful,
It's
is what it is. It's
I think it's gross. Tyrell, my home bartender husband, it really is into cachaça, and I think actually if I'm remembering our holiday party correctly, that was the liquor that broke Zach. That like he came
oh
and he's like Lafroig is delicious, and then he
oh
tried like
I remember
yeah,
that.
yeah, and I was like, oh, Zach's wrong. What's wrong with Zach's tongue? It's broken.
Yeah,
But
I
then
just,
Tyrell was like, well, now I have to find the thing that will like get him to say that's gross.
yeah,
And
somebody had likened it to Brazilian Everclear to me, like basically,
mhm.
like especially on
Yeah, it's
potency.
it's really like it's also super like vegetal. Like there's like a
Hmm.
tomato thing and like
Mm.
it's really weird. I don't like it.
Well, and
I don't
caipirinhas are
like
a
it.
little bit more difficult as well because you've got to do some muddling with the lime and the raw
Yeah.
sugar and all that.
Yeah, there's
Um,
more steps. It's not
the
just
other thing
dump
this
in.
reminds me of, and then we're gonna move on and talk about Honduras. It reminds me of a calimocho in Spain.
Oh, I
So a
don't know this
calimocho
one.
is you're probably going to go, oh my god, that's so gross. It's Coke and red
Oh, I
wine,
can't wait. Eh.
almost 1 to 1. And it's typically because
Hmm.
obviously in Europe, like the drinking age is much lower, and so
Uh-huh.
kids, and it's not as much
Oh,
stigma to
sure.
it. So it's how kids kind of get started on red wine because wine's a big
Mm-hmm.
thing in Spain, of course.
Yeah.
But you can also just order them at a restaurant and things, and it's just a calimocho.
Huh.
So yeah,
The more you know.
exciting. All right,
Yeah.
so why don't we let producer Zach give us a dance break, and then we'll come back and we will grill Caitlin on her time in Honduras. Not really. We're just going to
I
have a
can't wait.
conversation about it.
I
There's no
can't
grilling.
wait.
All right, and we are back. So this is
We're
not the
back.
most structured episode, um,
Because
but
we have such a rigid structure to begin with.
right, yeah. So we're so regimented on this, but I think the first thing that I want to know is like, how did you end up in Honduras? Like,
Yeah.
what got you there?
Well, I majored at Morningside College in Spanish and photography, so I can take your picture in two languages if you need me to.
Oh,
Uh, that's right. It's my bit. I'm doing a bit. But my parents primarily were concerned that photography was not going to be an employable skill. Imagine. They really leaned into like the starving artist narrative, which has not necessarily been the case either, thankfully. Uh, but I knew that if I was going to increase my fluency and actually be able to use Spanish in an employable way, I needed to be more fluent at it or needed to get some more real world
yep, absolutely.
experience. And the way at the time, and I think still to do that, is to just go and
Hmm.
immerse yourself. And I was really conscious of going on a paid program. Like I didn't want to spend I at that time I didn't realize that I could probably have afforded to spend time just volunteering, but
Hmm.
uh the Peace Corps wasn't really an option because you didn't get to actually choose where you ended up. They just kind of
Yeah.
assign you places. And I was nervous that my level of fluency at the time wouldn't guarantee me a spot in Central or South America. And so bilingual school came to Morningside looking for teachers. And the education system in Honduras is different in as much that you don't need an actual teaching certificate to be considered a teacher. And
Hmm.
so I was hired because, unbeknownst to me, the year before I started, Honduras had actually had a military coup and their president was ousted. And then, like 3 or 4 months later, I was in the country. I think, had my parents known that, they might have had some concerns about my safety, which was never an issue. That I knew of. But so yeah, so I was hired by a school to teach. It ended up being first grade, and then I made the mistake, maybe, of mentioning that I really love proofreading and grammar, and so they're like, "Oh,
Really?
great,
Do
we
you?
have."
Hmm.
Yeah, right. So then they're like, "Well, that's so interesting. We have an opening in 8th grade language arts." So I was teaching an entire class of like 30, I think I ended up with like 31 first graders. And then one of my free periods, I was also teaching 8th grade English,
Oh wow.
which was wild.
What is that,
Those
like
those 8th
14 year
graders were
olds, like
so
13, 14-year olds?
I think
15
so,
maybe?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eighth
I think
grade, you're
13,
like
14.
13, 14.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's like
Yeah.
that was moped time if I remember right from my childhood.
Yeah. And those kids were so smart and tricky. Like, they knew how to get away
Interesting.
with stuff in 8th grade that I was like, oh, I am out of my depth here at managing human beings.
Well,
Like,
and luckily
it was wild.
you've got a ways until you have an 8th grader in your house. She's still pretty
Right.
young. Now, first
Yeah.
grade's gonna
Yeah.
come like nobody's business super
I
fast. You'll turn around and
know.
be
And
like, "I know."
those sweet babies. Oh my gosh. I had no idea what I was doing. Zero idea. And I had always said growing up, my mom taught. She retired from teaching after 35 years, and I always said growing up that I never wanted to be a teacher because I saw all the nonsense she had to put up with. And
Yep.
then I was like, "What is this 1 year I can do it?" And it turns out that I could do it, but I would not necessarily enjoy all of the aspects of
Not a
it.
career choice for you.
No, no. I like children like 3 at a time, but 30 at a time is a lot. A lot,
It
a
is.
lot.
I mean, and I can tell you
Um,
from teaching the college courses that I do that,
yeah,
26 to 30 kids, or young adults, I guess, at that point, even if they're in their like early 20s, is still a
it's
lot.
still a lot. Yeah, and so much of what I was doing was like you have to teach them how to be people too. And I was barely a people. Like, I barely knew what I was doing at 20. I think, I was 22. I turned 23 while I was there. So, like, I was a baby myself. I had no idea. Um, but we spent as much time as we could, like, traveling and seeing other parts of the country. We lived right outside of, so it was me, and I lived with 3 other American women, and then
But
across
people
the road from us,
you didn't
I
know them
didn't know
before
any,
going, right? You
I
went on
didn't
your own,
know.
like not like
Yep.
you and three friends. It's just you went there
Nope.
and met
It
these people,
was,
and hey, here's your new
yeah,
roommates. You've never met them, and you're in a foreign country. That takes
exactly.
some
Exactly.
like. I mean, you're an extrovert, so that makes sense. But still, I would imagine that was a
Yeah.
little bit uncomfortable, like out of your comfort zone for sure.
I I don't know if I
Or were you
had
just fearless? Fearless 23-year-old, like, I'll just go to another country. Sure, why not?
I think it's that. I think I didn't know as much about the world as I thought I did. But I had so much passion and curiosity about the other cultures that
Mhm.
I kind of ignored the rest of, I don't know, the red flags. I don't know. It just
I think that
I
nobody
have
had you hadn't
yeah.
had your curiosity broken yet. Like, no one you
Well,
hadn't
that
had a
and
huge
like
letdown probably in that
mhm.
area.
I quite honestly still have, like, personally still have not. Like, I was raised in such a way that the world has always been safe for me.
Hmm.
And there's not ever been a time where I was concerned about like real threats to my well-being, and I always had like a safety net, and
Hmm.
that, quite honestly, that feeling persisted throughout my time in Honduras. The school did the most wonderful job making us feel safe and giving us resources to travel, but also I think they shielded us from a lot
Probably. I
of
mean,
the realities. Yeah,
yeah, especially
yeah.
if a coup was happening, like while you were there.
Well, it was
And
over by the time I got
okay,
there.
well, that's good. I mean, that's good. I can imagine your mother with like, there's a coup.
They had no idea. They had
Well, this
no
was like,
idea.
I mean, the internet was a thing when you were in
Mhm.
college because it was a thing when
Yeah.
I was in college, but it wasn't as ubiquitous as it is today, where we have
No, and
so much
also
information, and the olds
yeah.
weren't on it. It was just the
It,
youngs.
and also just like the level of awareness that's required to understand the geopolitical ramifications of a military coup in a small Central American
Mhm.
country. Like that like to conceptualize that is beyond even still my understanding of how the world works. Like it's a lot. There's a lot.
So
So,
I have a story that kind of goes with that, believe it or
yeah.
not. So
I
I did
believe
not
it.
get to study abroad. Tangents is one of the names of the words in the title. I didn't get a study abroad. Like I didn't do a semester abroad. I really wish I
Yeah.
had. Instead, I did a whole nother degree in 2 semesters for my last year of college.
Mhm.
Um, but when I left high school, we did our Spanish class. 6 of us and our teacher did a trip to Mexico, and we went to Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah.
Um, and it was really neat. So we stayed in Mexico City, and it was much safer back then. Wandered around, had tasks. It was an organized group. There were other schools there as well. There were like 20 of
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like we had to go to a bread shop and buy bread, and somebody had to go to a meat shop and buy sliced meat so that
Yeah.
we could eat our lunch
Carniceria. Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we took a train to Guadalajara, like through the mountains and stuff, which was neat.
Mhm.
And then we flew to Puerto Vallarta. When we got to Puerto Vallarta, so it would have been the summer of 1990, since my age isn't a secret anyway. When we got to Puerto Vallarta, we were getting off the plane, and it's much like, I mean, if you've gone to like Hawaii or even Florida,
Yeah.
sometimes
Yep.
you get off the plane and you walk down the
Walk
tarmac
out
and
of
you
the
go
on
in
the
a door.
tarmac. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So we came in a door and there was security there, which foreign country security and like airports and things generally have like machine guns and stuff. Like it's military. And they had
Mhm.
blocked like the whole aisle, and we were stuck in that little kind of waiting area where the boarding area.
Yeah.
All of us getting off the plane because they were escorting Manuel Noriega through. He had been arrested and was going to the
Oh,
US for
jeez.
trial.
Yeah.
And we saw him like walk by, and he's got such a distinct face.
Mhm.
His nickname was Carapina, because he had so many pockmarks and things on his face.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my like, I guess, deposed dictator brush with in Puerto
Wow.
Vallarta. And then we went to our little resort, and had a good time. And
Yeah.
then we came back to America. But yeah.
Now you're north.
So so aside from the school, let's get into some other stuff. So like
Yeah.
did you like go out in town? Were there bars? Were there clubs? Because like
Um.
you're like a college or post-college student, like
Mhm.
in a
We
foreign
were all
country,
pretty
of
young. Yeah.
age, but young. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it could be a fun time.
It was.
We
It
we
was
want the dirt.
really.
We want the dirt, Caitlin.
So that, quite honestly, there's not a lot of dirt to be spilled from that period of time. It was a Christian school, and we
Oh,
worked in a very small town that there were kind of, I don't know, stigmas attached to imbibing. And
oh, wow. Okay.
we were, yeah, so anytime, like, we didn't buy alcohol at the local grocery store because it would have been like it would have
Oh,
reflected
it's
poorly on the
scandalized for
school.
the school.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I get
Yeah. Yep.
that. Wow.
Yeah. But when we traveled, so we we would get like long weekends, and we would get like they observed American Thanksgiving for us and like took
Oh,
us
nice.
to the Capitol and hosted a really lovely dinner. And then we traveled like on, I think our first long weekend was like in the fall. We went to a beach in the Gulf. I'm forgetting the names of places already. It's been
That's okay. So
like
a beach
12 or
in the
13
Gulf. So
years. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
warm. It's
It's
beautiful.
more, it's beautiful. Yeah,
Tropical.
yep. And so like when we traveled outside of the town that we lived in, and we didn't actually live in town, we lived in a village, and we had like three kind of actual neighbors. So it was like me and my three roommates lived in a house, and then across the road from us was a married couple that we were all like very similar age, like very close in age, 23, 24
Mhm.
at the time. And we all got along really well. So that was kind of our like American pod, and we did a lot of stuff together, the six of us.
Do you
Um,
still keep in touch with any of them? Or no?
yeah,
You do?
yeah. Less now. Yeah. The three women that I lived with were all in our wedding, and we
Wow.
were all it. Yeah, yeah. And two. So for a while, Shelly and Laura Beth both lived in Des Moines, so they were
Oh,
like
okay.
from Iowa,
So they were
and
near. Like it
just
wasn't.
happened. Yeah. Yep. And then now Shelly and Jennifer both live like an hour from each other outside of Kansas City, and Laura Beth still lives in Des Moines. So we get together. It's been less, like I said. The last time we were together was February 2020 when we
Yeah.
were
So
all
you could
together.
that makes sense because then we all
Hmm.
shut down. So
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
triangulate like in Omaha. You could all kind of drive an
And that's
hour
what
or
we did.
two. Yeah.
Like after we got back, we would meet in Omaha and stay at the Holiday Inn, like sort of in the old market downtown ish, like right near the ball
Oh,
field.
yep. Yeah.
Um,
I know that one.
and then yeah, we would just like wander around and be together, and yeah, they it. I liken the year that we were together to like an extended summer camp where it was like very dreamy and relaxed, but also very like fraught. Like we were all doing so much like growing and changing and learning at that time that it
Oh
was
yeah.
like, and I didn't in college I didn't have like a typical roommate experience most years, and so
Okay. Yeah, I was the
it was
same.
kind of like that for me too.
I had a psycho
But it and
roommate.
it was like yeah. I but it was like, and nobody else outside of the six of us knew what it was like, or knew, like we had such a crystallizing experience together that it's hard to like let other people into that without, it's like you had to be there. It's like one big long inside joke of you
Yeah,
had to
of
be
course.
there,
I mean, when we spend a
and
year with
just
those
like so
people,
formative. Yeah, yeah.
and you're not. I mean, you're semi cut off from your regular life. So this
Hmm.
becomes your life, but it's sort of
Yeah,
this
it was. I mean, it was our
like
life. Like we
yeah.
went, we cooked, and like two of the gals, they were like, it was the first time that they had lived outside of the dorms or their parents' home. And so like
Whoa.
had never had to like cook really for themselves. Like they relied heavily on the cafeteria at school. And so it was like, here's how you cook things, and here's how, like, the best part of that experience, one of the best parts in like our day-to-day experience, was like Laura Beth and I were in charge of cooking, and then Shelly and Jennifer would clean up. So like I could
Oh,
make a mess in the kitchen. I was like our head chef, and then they would just like come behind and do all the dishes. It was the best.
that's how
I'm
our
still
house
trying
is.
to figure out how
Brian
I like
cooks
try.
most
Yeah,
of the
right.
time.
I
Yeah, Brian
want
cooks
that
most of the
in my
time.
home.
And I'm big on like after I'm done eating, I don't want to do a bunch of dishes. And he's
Uh-huh.
more like, oh, it'll all be here when we're done eating and we can clean it up. And so like he'll be done with the pan and I'll take it out of his hand and like as long
Yeah.
as it's cool enough, go wash it. He's finished with his bowl or the cutting board and I've got the knife and everything. I'm washing as he's going.
Yeah, yeah.
Which used to drive him crazy, but now he's kind of appreciating it because when you get done,
Hmm.
all you have to do is put your
Then
own
you're,
dishes in the dishwasher and you're finished.
yep, and then you're done. Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
So, what do you think was, well, what's the strangest thing, I guess, that you encountered or that you had to adjust
Oh
to
gosh.
in Honduras? I know I should have given you these questions ahead of time. So, this is totally Caitlin on the
That's
spot.
right, right. Yeah, the strange. I don't know if there's like a singular strange thing. I mean, like we were all sheltered Midwest kids, like
Hmm.
dropped into a completely different culture. Um,
So just
the
culture
straight
shock in
like
general.
Yeah, yeah. I remember, I don't know if this is the strangest thing, but I remember, so Tyrell came, we were dating at the time. And
Oh.
this is such a testament to him and his like personality. I had dated this idiot in college that was like, I don't know. I had said like, I want to join the Peace Corps. I want to do, and he's like, I don't know why you'd ever want to do that. And I was like so deflated. And before, so I applied to go to Honduras. I think before Tyrell and I actually started dating, and then I had like the interview and the acceptance like 2 or 3 months into our relationship. And I remember calling him and being like, I got the job. What do you think I should do? And he's like, you should go.
Hmm.
And then he said, like, would you really think that I would expect you to stay here for me? And I was like, so that like there were a lot of like other formative things happening in my life as well.
Hmm.
That was like the first time that I was like, oh man, like he really believes that I can do hard stuff and like that I should be my own
Like
like person
independent, my own
outside of
human
him. Yeah.
being.
It was like it was that was pretty
So was that
mind-blowing and
your like
spectacular.
was that your he's a keeper moment?
One, yeah.
One
Yeah.
of them.
Um
I
yeah,
mean,
one
I
of
think
them.
the bartending skills would have done it for
Right,
me.
yeah. He didn't have those in college,
Oh
shockingly
wow,
enough.
interesting.
Yeah, it's been a late development.
He done and
But
visited
I,
you.
yeah,
You were
yes,
saying,
thank you. I was like, what was the point of
yeah.
this? But he came, so Holy Week, like Easter week, is a
Okay.
big deal,
Hmm.
and
Of
the
course,
whole
I'll be a
country
Catholic
like
country.
observes, yeah, and shuts down. So he came. We went to a resort on Roatan, which is like one of the big
Hmm.
diving islands. So the second
And
largest barrier reef
I
exists
know
off
it
the
from
coast of Honduras.
Survivor.
Yeah,
They filmed
yeah,
there
sure.
once.
Okay. So he came and visited, and we before we left to go to the island, I was like kind of giving him a tour of the little town that we lived outside of, and we were just like walking around. Neither of us are small people. Like I'm 5'10", he is like almost 6 feet tall, and both of us are sturdy. We're sturdy Midwestern folks, right? And I remember we were walking down one of the like side streets, and this man who I think was intoxicated just looked at us and said que gringones, which is just like what large white people. And I was like, yes sir, that is accurate.
Not wrong. Thank
Tyrell
you.
looked at me, he's like,
We're
what
going
did
to
he
move
say? And I was
on.
like, he just said we're large white people. And like we just kept walking. Like, okay.
So the random people you meet on the street,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
sort of, I don't know if that's an insult or just a statement of awe, I
Oh, it's a
think.
statement of
Yeah.
fact. 100%. I am a large white person. That
But you
has
get
not, yeah.
that in a
Yeah.
whole different language, which is really great.
Yeah.
It's just more
Yeah.
beautiful.
It really
Let's
was. Yeah.
see.
The other thing that
Um,
I thought I
oh, go
was
ahead.
thinking about like when he came to visit, I had gotten so used to like as we were riding the bus and the ferry like across to the island, which was kind of a haven for other English speakers, like I said, really popular diving, like scuba
Hmm.
diving area. And so and then like a popular cruise ship destination, so there
Hmm.
were
Yep.
more white people on the island, more English speakers than I was used to at the time, because it was like April, so I had been there for like 8 months at that point. And
Okay, so you're
he was
getting the
visiting, we
tourists
were like,
coming down and through now versus
yeah,
like just
yeah, and like
locals.
yeah, yep, and I'm at that point kind of acclimated, used to being one of the group translators. And Tyrell's visiting, and he we were like sitting in a boat with going, so I think from the ferry or some, I can't remember, but we were talking to an Australian group, and I had gotten so used to like regurgitating what people were saying to him that they were speaking English,
Hmm.
and I heard it, and then I looked at him and I said, this is what they're saying, and he goes, yeah, I know that one. And I was like, oh right.
Yeah,
Like,
the accent's
and
not,
we're all
they're not
yeah.
Scottish. Like the accent is under, you got to get used to it, but it's understandable.
But I just been so used to
Hmm.
being like, here's this half of the conversation, now let me say this half, and like going back and forth to translate from Spanish to English, that I forgot that I didn't need to
And
translate English to English for him.
That's interesting. I wonder if that happens with like sign language interpreters. They're so used to signing
Probably
everything
like
that's being
talking
said
with their
around them
hands. Yeah,
that
for sure.
they're like their talk with their hands is literally like they're sort
Uh
of
huh.
like mildly signing because they know nobody needs to see it, but it's like that's what my hands do when we're having a
Uh huh.
conversation.
Yeah, it was really
Um,
funny. He's like, "No, I got it." I'm like, "Oh
yeah,
right, okay, carry
yeah.
on."
Well, English just slightly different.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
Those are funny. Like, I didn't realize you were there for a year. That's wild to me.
hmm Technically, it was
Um,
like 10 months, but I just round up because
And so, and you
it's
came
easier.
back to the Midwest. You didn't like, because a lot of times people will go do that for a year and then be like, I'm going to,
I gotta get out of here.
yeah, I go
Well,
someplace big. I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to go someplace else. I'm going to
hmm
stay. Was it
yeah,
was it the Tyrell that brought you back,
yeah.
or
I
family? You
had the
just
option. No, I didn't. My parents were like, "You may not move home," because I
oh
still
okay,
was kind of
got
under
it.
the guise of like
Mine were like that too.
um, not living together before we got married. So I told
Mm.
my parents when I came home for Christmas for like a week or two. I can't remember. I think it was 2 weeks. And I said, Tyrell said that I could live with him when I get back, and like I wouldn't have to pay rent or anything. Like he'll cover me until I find a job and stuff. And they were like, "That's good because you can't move home." And I was like, "Thank God I didn't want to move back to the middle of nowhere in South Dakota. Thank you." Not that like Sioux City is this grand metropolis, but at the time it was like
Well, and it's
much
also for that
bigger.
area, like for a very large area, it's the city. Like,
That's true. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're an hour and a half from anything that size or bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And so I moved back in June, and he had gotten an apartment. Um, he was hired by his still current employer in
Wow, that is
July of
longevity.
2010. Yeah, yeah. And this is like just another, I don't know. This feels more personal about me than about Honduras, but it's funny to look back at that. He had gotten hired as like a call center
Mhm.
floor rep,
Well, and at
just
that time,
taking like,
there was so much call center stuff going
yeah,
on in the Sioux City
yeah,
area.
yep. Just taking calls on the floor. And then I think he had gotten promoted to at least twice before I came back, because he's a really great communicator
Mhm.
and he's just ridiculously smart. And so by the time I came back, I think he was making like 15 or $16 an hour, not adjusted for inflation. I don't know, something
Right?
around there. And I mean, like, it was a decent job. He liked the hours, and I just kind of landed here, and then we were like going to figure out what we were going to do. And then my first job after I got back was doing in-home safety work for a subcontractor to the state of Iowa, like
Oh,
DHS,
wow. Okay.
which was like hard and heartbreaking. But I was hired because I was bilingual, which was the plan kind of all along, that I
Yep.
would come back and be super employable because I could speak 2 languages. And I did that for, I don't know, probably about a year, and then moved into banking, financial services, and had 2 or 3 different jobs doing that. And then while I was working in banking, I was also kind of slowly launching a photography business. And then,
So
yeah,
did
here I
you
am.
like did you do photography in Honduras? Did you take a good camera and like actually
I took
shoot
yeah,
stuff?
I had a DSLR I took with
Yep.
me. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. Like I should have maybe taken some more good
Mm.
photos, but most of what I have is snapshots. I have um some, I don't know, landscapes and things. There's
Mhm.
one like picture of a tree that was up the hill from us, and I don't know.
Those can be good.
There's some stuff, yeah, yeah.
So just to
I'm scrolling back through my album now and looking at
oh,
what
just to
I
put a
have. Yeah.
finer point on the difference in time from when I went to Mexico, I took my Pentax P3N with me
Oh
uh,
wow.
because I had moved from a
Uh-huh.
K1000 up to the P3N, which was like the pinnacle affordable camera at the time.
Yeah.
I still have it. It sits on a shelf just with other cameras,
Oh.
but took a lot of film. So my big thing was I took some black and white film with me. So some of my photos from Puerto Vallarta are in black and white, and some are in color.
Yeah.
And then what we did is our group and the group that was attached to us, they had 2 teachers and 4 students, and we had 1 teacher and 6 students. We all got together afterward and printed our
Mm-hmm.
photos and shared and swapped back and forth.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
I don't even know if I've scanned any of those. I should send those in to a service because I don't want to do it myself. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But yeah, I should send
I
those in
can
and get them
connect you to
scanned.
a lab if you need. Yeah.
Very cool. I think we've kind of gone around on the journey there. Less scandalous than we were hoping, probably. But I mean,
Yeah.
I know you, so I knew it wasn't going to be, especially at that
Right. I
age. And
was not sowing a lot of oats at that point in my
yeah, well, and
life.
especially,
That
you're
came before.
teaching for a Christian school, small
Mm-hmm.
community. I mean, it's like growing up in a small town in Iowa or South
Yeah.
Dakota or
Yeah.
wherever. Everybody knows everything. Like by the time you've driven
Mm-hmm.
by someplace doing something you shouldn't, they've called your parents, and by the time
Somebody
you get home, they're
knows.
like,
Yeah.
"Hey, were you on this street at this
Mm-hmm.
time where you weren't supposed to
Yeah.
be?" And you're like, yeah, because somebody called
No,
you. I
yes, I was doing that. Yep.
know." But it was nice that you got to get outside of that sphere of influence of the school and do a few more things. I mean, because
Yeah.
go to bars and things like that, just clubs, have fun, um,
Yeah.
and
And we
just
did, I mean,
see
it was more
things.
like yeah, it was more like not touristy. Like we kind of bridged the gap between like tourist spots and living like the locals. Like
So
there weren't a
exploratory.
lot of places. Yeah, exactly. Where it was
Mhm.
like we wanted to eat what the locals eat and go where the locals go and like actually live there as opposed to like see the side. I don't know. We did a lot of both, but
Yeah, that's what
yeah.
I've done. When we were in San Diego, we went to Mexico quite a bit because we could
Mm-hmm.
go to Cabo super easy. Puerto
Yeah.
Vallarta wasn't as easy, but it wasn't hard. And we would always, and then just the Baja Coast with like all the
Mm-hmm.
lobster. Like you could get a whole lobster for like $6. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, but we would always want to go to like that local place or that funky place, the place where no one's speaking English. I mean, even when we went to
Yes.
Italy, we wanted, so Google Maps actually has a thing where you can look at ratings when you're traveling abroad and you can
Mm-hmm.
toggle it to local reviews only instead of local and
Oh, isn't
tourist.
that brilliant?
And so you can kind of see, and it's interesting how the difference of those, especially when you get to like authentic food and what people expect coming from a different country. So yeah, so that's good. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I do call that exploring, like just wandering around,
Yeah.
looking at things, figuring things out, finding that weird grocery store or, cute little shop that you can buy a knickknack in or whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
cool. I think
Yeah.
that kind of does it for your time in Honduras. We've covered that now, so that's great. We'll wait for you to
Right.
drop another random like thing that you've done in your life, and we'll explore that in depth at some point.
I can't wait.
Um, but really
I should
good, and
maybe do one for you too. Yeah.
it's interesting to me, like the things that and the skills that you picked up there, and the skills that made that something you would do, and how you've
Mm-hmm.
used those in different aspects of your career, like moving
Yeah.
forward. Because I can see those threads. I can see the teaching thread. I can see the
Mm.
exploring thread.
Mm-hmm.
So, what a great, great thing to do right after college.
Yeah. I remember my parents at the time, my dad, I was like I was a little bit nervous. Um, but he's like, this is the time to do
Hmm.
it.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
you're unattached. You don't have a mortgage you have to pay. You don't have like really any, strong relations that that you're bound to
You don't
that
have a house
like
full of
you
furniture.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's like
things.
I left my bed in my dresser with Tyrell. He like used it while I was gone and I didn't have to pay for a storage space. Like I
Mhm.
didn't have to move anything. Yeah. Um it was yeah, really
So,
really formative still and I think ways that I don't necessarily recognize even now. But
so I think I know the answer to this, but in closing, like, would recommend
yeah, absolutely. Oh,
100%.
yeah. Mhm.
Cool. Thanks for sharing your story and getting a little
You're
personal
so
there. It was
welcome.
really fun to
This
talk
was
to you.
my pleasure. My pleasure.
That's it for another episode of Cocktails, Tangents, and Answers.
We hope it was as much fun to listen to as it was to make.
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at RichMackey. I try not to make it too difficult. It's just my name. And you can find our agency at Antidote_71. That's ANTIDOTE_71 on Twitter and Instagram as well.
And you can find me at home sipping a craft cocktail prepared by my in-home bartender. It's my husband.
We'll be back with another episode every other week and a whole new cocktail recipe, plenty more tangents, and of course, answers to those pressing marketing questions.
And if you'd like to send us a question, you can go to ctapodcast.live to send us an email.
Or you can call our hotline at 402-718-9971 and leave us a voicemail. Your questions might be used for future episodes of the podcast.
For now, like and subscribe and tune in next time.